Hello out there. My name is Laolu Akonde and you are on to Inside Sources. But first, here is my take for today entitled IBB and the June 12th saga, What Next? The highest level representation of Nigeria's power elite gathered together in this town on Thursday to honor former military president Ibrahim Babangida on the launch of his autobiography, A Journey in Service. It was also a fundraising for the IBB Presidential Library. It was a good day for the 83-year-old enigmatic and charismatic former Nigerian leader by all standards, and we congratulate him for the mercies of God upon his life. In the much-awaited book, IBB finally told us what happened regarding June 12th presidential poll, which his military government infamously annulled. I remember in my interview with IBB last year, January, in Minna, at his private residence, he did hint me that he was doing the book that would fully address June 12th, so we left that subject alone in that conversation on Inside Sources. He has kept his promise, and that is a good thing. At least now we know. According to IBB in that autobiography, he showed that he himself was outflanked by late General Sani Abacha, who, according to him, was actually responsible for the third statement that annulled the poll which was won by Chief MKO Abiola. His words on page 275, exactly in the book, said this, and I'll quote him. On the morning of June 23, I left Abuja for Katsina to commiserate with the Yaradua family over the death of their patriarch, Alhaji Musa Yaradua. And as I got ready to leave, a report filtered to me that June 12 elections had been annulled. I was alarmed and horrified. Continuing, he said, and I quote, I will later find out that forces, and he put forces in quote, led by General Sani Abacha annulled the elections, unquote. In fact, IBB said it himself in the book, I quote, these nefarious inside forces have outflanked me, unquote. So amid the speeches, the banters, the jokes, and the recollections that we saw on Thursday at the event here in Abuja, there was not a single word about the fate of the victims and their families, especially those that have died. Besides the well-known names, there are several other unknown Nigerians that died in many protests that greeted the annulment and the subsequent unwholesome acts that followed, especially between 1993 and 1998. To be sure, the annulment brutally crushed the will of the Nigerian people and egregiously aborted the dreams of the whole nation. So now that we have heard the story from IBB, shouldn't we spare a thought for those who died or whose lives were significantly battered by the annulment and devastating chain reactions that followed it? We didn't hear any of that on Thursday, not at all, and that was very sad. Aren't we a people of conscience? Don't we fear God, who alone can give life and take it? So, it's never late. Nigeria waited for 32 years to have the insight that IBB has now supplied us. But we shouldn't have to wait any further now to do the right thing and compensate the known victims and also provide some national therapy to this nation. We need that national therapy because of what happened to our conscience, what happened to us as a people when June 12 was crushed. What should we do? Number one, we need a truth commission, such as the one we saw after the end of apartheid in South Africa. We ought to know the truth of what happened in sufficient detail. We ought to know the whole truth, and if possible, we ought to know nothing but the truth. This has not happened yet. The launch of the book did not assuage that. Former President Obasanjo's Oputa panel was an attempt, but that was too generic, and the disclosures we have now, we didn't have it when the Oputa panel sat. So, we want to suggest to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, himself a victim but a triumphant survivor from the destruction of the June 12th saga, that he should establish a truth commission. That way we get all the sides of what truly happened in full, and we can take a formal decision as a nation to let bygones be bygones. Why starting afresh and ensuring that such a despicable emasculation of the expressed will of Nigerians will never happen again. Number 2, we need a comprehensive listing of all known victims, dead or alive, and we must find a way to honor them. This is where we must all give kudos to the Buhari or Shibajo administration, which decided to honor Chief Abiola, Ambassador Kingibe, and the irrepressible Chief Gani Fawehinmi. But we must also honor the memory of Mrs. Kudirat Abiola. We must honor the memory of Chief Alfred Rewane. We must honor the memory of Chief Frank Okori and thousands of all the victims that we can identify. We could build a democracy park where their names will be enshrined in gold. And finally, number 3, all those involved in the June 12 destruction saga should attend the Truth Commission and tender their unreserved apologies to the nation. It is the right thing to do. If we are able to do some of these things, we can truly be proud of ourselves as a people. But until then, all the banters of the power elite that we saw on Thursday will only be a demonstration of selfishness and a carefree attitude to the very idea of a free people under God in this great country called Nigeria. One last word on this. All of us human beings, leaders and followers alike, let us always examine ourselves and watch our motivations, especially the leaders. And then let us always remember to fear God. And there you have it. Inside Sources. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, as we continue the conversation on the future of Nigeria, I have a most distinguished Nigerian who we all know to be an executive coach, leadership expert, management consultant, a values champion, and more than anything, a nation builder. I'd like to welcome to Inside Sources, one-time presidential candidate of the Alliance for New Nigerian Party in 2019, Mr. Fela Durotoye. My brother, welcome to Inside Sources.
It is great to join you on the station today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for coming. So we normally start the discussion by me asking my guests that if you look at where we are today as a country, do you think that we are on course to a great Nigeria in your whole view?
Well, I would say to anyone who asks that question, there are things that are working for us and the things that are working against us. Okay? There are policies that government is putting in place that can help to once strengthen our economy and all of that. Yeah, so for instance, we know that subsidy, as painful as it is, was something that we can't afford as a nation, and no nation can really afford it if it's, but there are other things that are derailing us as a people. And those are the things that are literally we have to overcome as challenges if we're going to be able to actualize the greatness of our nation. One of such things is the division that we see around our, dividing ourselves into tribe, into on religious basis, on political parties, affiliations, all of those things that don't matter. Why? Because they are things that they always come to pass as the people say. One person that is saying, "Oh, today I'm in one party," and the other, next time, So we know that those things don't matter. When you look at the nation Nigeria, when it was known to be a great nation, the people came together. It didn't matter who was from which tribe. They came together as one people. They had one vision of Independence Day. Even though they were young people, they were born into colonial rule, but they believed together. They had the mind that we will not give to our children the second-class citizenship that we have. These guys were thinking beyond whether it was their own, how much am I going to make, where am I going to, they were thinking as a generation. And I think that if we're going to be able to truly actualize the greatness of Nigeria, we have to start to think, not as individuals, but as a generation. There was a generation of liberation, I call them. Look, in 1945, these guys met, about 79 of them met in a hotel in Manchester. Some of these people were Kwame Nkrumah, Obafemi Awolowo, Kamuzu Banda, Julius Nyerere, from all across the African continent. right? Now go and look at it. 1945, Chief Obafemi Awolowo was 36 years old.
Yeah.
Can you imagine a 36-year-old coming into a hotel, staying there 6 days, thinking about the future of Africa? 36-year-old. Today, most 36-year-olds, most 63-year-olds are thinking about, myself, me, what I'm going to do, where I'm going to, So we have to come to understand that the me mentality is what is killing the potential of our nation. But a we mentality is what will bring about the greatness. So beyond the policies, beyond any of those things, who are we as a people? As Nigerians, if we can come together as Nigerians and decide that, listen, God has blessed Nigeria greatly, nobody can argue about it. Mineral resources, natural resources, even human capital. But beyond that, we have to come together. And when we come together with a clear vision, we come together with clear values,
right?
We will build the greatest nation that the world has.
Interesting. Thank you, Brother Fela, for that opening. So I want to take it off from what you said, that, the example of people like Obafemi Awolowo doing that meeting in 1945 with Kwame Nkrumah, Kamuzu Banda, and the rest of them, that they were thinking as a generation. So that means that we had leaders who got it right at some point, and we are driven by the right values. Yes. When did you think there was a change to that, or how, in your own view, did that change happen so that today we find ourselves where we are? What do you think is responsible?
Well, I think a couple of things. The first thing is that sometimes you look at vision has to be continuing. When you have a vision that literally comes to pass, it's a responsibility for you to revision.
Okay.
And the vision that the generation of liberation had was for independence.
Okay. They had a target.
It was a clear target. They worked together. They didn't just work within countries as had been divided through the partition.
They understood.
They actually even still work
one
as a continent, Pan-African.
Wow.
Okay, so it was not enough for Nigeria to get independence in 1960 or for Ghana to get independence in 1959. They were like, no, until the last of us get independence, we will not get. Now, but the vision was an independent Africa. Then an independent Africa came, and the question was, what next? So if you listen to the speech, Independence Day speech of, at that time, the then Prime Minister, Tafawa Balewa, you realize that he was just thanking the people that helped them to get to where we are. But he didn't cast any vision for
what is going to happen next.
So now the people have come into a point where they now come into liberation and they have power without vision. Every time you have power without vision, you're going to have confusion. You're going to have, you're going to have corruption. It's every time you have power without vision, you're going to have decadence. And that was what had started to happen. People who served, who sacrificed to get us independence became corrupt. Then the people who had never really been through leadership development or leadership training, young people who were angry, then rose and then took over. And so we went back into rulership. Even after we had, yes. So this is what I'm saying. Nigeria has for so long been ruled. We had so long, for centuries, had traditional rulers. And then we had colonial masters or rulers. And then we had those guys that we were talking about, leaders that emerged, not because they had power, they didn't have pedigree, they didn't have money, they didn't have anything. They only had a vision. They had a sense of purpose. They had a sense of, look, we have to do something that is greater than us. That's what made them leaders. They didn't become leaders because they had title. They didn't become leaders because they were appointed. They were not elected when they became leaders. It was because they were leaders that they came and did something. Yeah. But then these other guys then came, and they hadn't yet built themselves as leaders, and they came and brought us military rule. Now, let me just tell you a quick joke. I think it was 2010. I think so. When, unfortunately, I think it was May the 5th or something, I can't remember, or May the 15th, when the day that President Durotoye passed away. Yeah. If you remember, that was at the heat of the elections, the British elections, where David Cameron and Gordon Brown were both, vying for the leadership of the British government. And I remember watching Sky News on that day, and they were talking about David Cameron, the leader of the Conservative Party, and Gordon Brown, the leader of the Labour Party, and who's going to become the next leader of the British government. And then they took a break and came back with the breaking news and said, we have it on the authority of Reuters that the ruler of Nigeria, President Umaru Yar'Adua, has died.
So they were,
and it is expected.
They knew what we didn't know. But
and it is expected that the Vice President, Dr. Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, will become the next ruler of Nigeria.
Those were the words.
Oh my God, I was so angry. I was shouting at the television. How dare you call your people leaders and you're calling them. It's like as if they could hear me. But then inside my spirit, I said, listen, calm down.
I know what they're saying.
President Yar'Adua and Vice President Jonathan, which party are they from? They said PDP. I said, well, how do they describe themselves? They call themselves the ruling party. I said, everything produces according to its own kind. A ruling party can only produce rulers. And I became gentle again. You see, the greatest challenge that Nigeria has had is that we've been ruled, we haven't been led.
But this was after independence,
yes.
Based on your
So when we had the military incursion, those were guys who had not yet developed as leaders. They came with leadership is the ability to influence and inspire and attract followers. When you have the gun, you don't inspire anybody. You inspire fear.
Yeah.
You understand? You dictate.
And submission.
That is rulership. Rulership is the opposite of leadership. Most people think that it's his followership that is opposite of leadership. No. It is rulership that is the opposite of leadership. And so rulers came in, and then we had all that go for, 40 years plus?
Some
also, and then what happened again? And then the rulers changed their uniform into bigger agbadas and all of that. And then, so now we then had, again, military rulers coming back as supposedly civilian rulers. But they never told us they were leaders. We are the ones, it is the people that have been calling them leaders. They are rulers. They know they're rulers. They call themselves the ruling party. They call themselves rulers. They say, we are going to capture a state. You hear those kind of things. They are always telling you who they are. But we want to believe the best in it. Nigeria needs to be led into the promised land.
This is quite a very unique perspective, and there are quite a lot of ways to take it forward. So, how do you think that can happen? This idea of ensuring that we have leaders and not rulers. In your mind, how do we get there?
I think that it's going to first start, like with everything else that leads to a change of mindset. It's going to be conversations like this, and people getting to understand that leadership and rulership are different. Once you understand rulership, you can tell who a ruler is and who a ruler is not. One of the things that I always say to people is that rulers have subjects, leaders have followers. Rulers intimidate their subjects. Leaders inspire their followers. Right? Rulers suppress their subjects. Leaders support their followers. Right? And so when you look at it, rulers always make people bitter, but leaders make people better. Now, this is not, and some people might always be there commenting, I beg you, motivational speaker. But the point that we are making is this. Go and look at the nations that we learned democracy from. For many of the years, they were led, not ruled. Right? And every time you see a nation that is led, the people believe in themselves. The people buy into the ownership of the nation. The people feel empowered. Under rulership, you disempower the people so that you are the only one that has power. Yeah. So when you look at it and you say, okay, hey, how do we get this done? Well, the first thing is that we have to learn about leadership. We have to.
Okay. All right. Sorry for cutting you short.
Because people, let me quickly say, in 2005, I watched a video that changed my life completely and my opinion about leadership. I want everybody that is listening to me to please go on YouTube and Google best ever video, True Leader. It speaks, it depicts just a 2-minute video. It depicts a village in India where a tree had fallen across a road and caused a roadblock. And it just happened that, everybody was there complaining and doing whatever it was, and then it started raining. And, so everybody ran away. But there was this little boy, maybe about 7 years old, who came down from the bus. He had his backpack on going to school. And, it was already raining and everybody had run away. And he stood in front of that tree and he put his hand and started pushing the tree. The tree was almost his height. Wow. Of course, the tree was not moving because it was a big tree. But what then happened was, after he stayed there for about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, some other little boys thought he was playing. So they came out and they started trying to push. And then after some time, the older ones thought, if these little ones are trying to do this, come on, what are we doing here? Then the older ones came out. And guess what? They moved the tree when all of them came together. Now, what that video taught me was what leadership was, but more importantly, what leadership was not. That leadership is not about age. You're never too young to lead. You're never too old to lead. Leadership was not about position. That boy didn't have any position. He wasn't elected to office. Leadership is not about title. It's not about any of those things. These were all the things we were told that leadership was. That one day you will become a leader. You were told you're a leader of tomorrow. And tomorrow never comes. So my point is this. It's important that we begin to learn about leadership. Because without learning about leadership, we will not know who we are. We won't realize. Nigeria doesn't need one great leader. Nigeria needs 220 million leaders. The leader that will save Nigeria is in the mirror. And I always tell people, go and look inside the mirror. You will find out who we have been waiting for.
Interesting point. So I want us to deepen it a little bit. So, because you had also said that even pre-colonial times we were ruled by traditional rulers. And as a matter of fact, some of our former presidents, have said that, maybe we are more traditional people. As a matter of fact, many people think that the idea of presidential system that was adopted in 1979 is because we do better as a people under rulership, to have a president with all of those, massive powers to bring all of us together, to break the walls of division by being one strong leader that can say that this is where we are going, Now, although that has not happened, but my question is that, so when we were traditional Africa before colonial times, do you think that augured well for the people? Because that was who we are before, So I want you to interrogate that, and based on what you said. Yeah. So, our pre-colonial time.
Yes. I think that as with every ruler, the problem with rulership is that it gives or abrogates power to this person, and therefore you get to become the kabiosi, the one that cannot be questioned. Yeah. Which means that you literally have to now, your development is at the benevolence of that leader. If you have a good ruler, as you might see, for instance, in the ruler of Dubai or one of those kind of things, people that have power that are not, the Queen of England is she's a ruler. She's not a leader, she's a ruler, But if you have good rulers, supposedly, then there's quick advancement because the good rulers have the capacity. But one of the things that you realize is that it's not because of their rulership that they can do that. It's because of their leadership. It's the ruler of Dubai wrote a book that is, as far as I'm concerned, the second best book that I've ever read, next to the Bible. And it's called My Vision, Challenges on the Race to Excellence. And if you read that, you realize that the reason why Dubai has become what it is not because it's ruled. It's actually because the ruler of Dubai became a leader.
So it's actually the person.
It is the person that determines. Now, but I'm going to say something I hope that will not be too controversial, but it's something that I have realized.
Okay.
Democracy has a problem. A unique problem that, if not extremely well managed, it can always lead to nations not fully accomplishing their goals or their potential. The problem of democracy is time and term limits of those who are in power. By this, I mean that, for instance, most of the executive positions, I'm talking about the executive positions like local government chairman, governor, and presidency, have time limits and term limits. So each term is, for local government chairman, it's 3 years. If for governors and presidents, it's 4 years. But then they're also limited to 2 terms. The challenge with that is that the moment somebody is time-bound and term-bound, their vision is also bound to the time that they serve. So it's almost practically impossible that any ruler in Nigeria, in government today, will be able to have a 30-year vision, a 40-year vision. I'm not talking about whether they write it or they don't write it. Is that, are they carrying it in their heart? Because what they're doing is they are only thinking next election, my next election. And so they can't commit to an infrastructural project that when they start it, they don't know whether the next one that is coming about after them will finish it or all of that. So the greatest challenge of democracy is the time and term limits. Now, the only people who are in positions of authority who do not have time and term limits are the royal fathers. The only challenge with royal fathers is that they think that they are the custodians of the past, the custodians of the tradition. So they are only there. You don't hear a royal father saying, over the next 40 years, this is the vision for my town and my citizens, my kingdom. No. They say, no, but they are the ones that will outlive. They will outlive every governor. If they live long enough, they will outlive every local government chairman. They are the ones that have the capacity to have a vision. And so I'm saying that, God never created rulers. He didn't create man to rule over man. He created man to rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the air, the cattle, and the land, and everything crawling. God never created man to rule over man. So the concept of rulership itself is wrong. But God made man to be royal fathers, kings and priests. So if our traditional rulers can transition into becoming royal fathers, then they will have vision for the children and the next generation. And I think that they have a significant role to play as royal fathers. But when they operate as traditional rulers,
I wanted to ask you, by now dealing with some realities, that where do you think we should start from where we are now? Where, in your own view, what is the starting point to get back to where we ought to be?
I would say that the starting point is nation building. Now, when we say nation building, you have to remember nations and countries are two different things. A country is about land, buildings, all of those things. Nation is about people. And we have to build the people. We have to build the people who not only would love their nation, but be inspired to accept responsibility.
The question is that who is going to do that job?
That's the kind of thing that we've been doing. I've been doing that for the last 20 years, right? And I think that more people today are saying, when I started 20 years ago and saying, I'm a nation builder, people say, what was a nation builder? Today, people would say, I remember when Fela came to my campus. I remember when Fela came to my school. I remember when Fela came and he talked to us about leadership, and he told me, and today I am who I am. I remember when Fela came to speak to us in at the beginning of my career. Today I'm an executive director of the bank, and Fela shaped my behavior, my thinking.
And this is true. Permit me to interrupt. This is true because of course I had known of you for quite a while. But a former general manager of one of the banks, which name I wouldn't mention, was done and said, Fela needs to be on inside sources. Just to confirm what you said, please go ahead.
So nation building is the responsibility of everyone. Remember, nation is people. Everybody needs to be able to build not only themselves as valuable members of the nation, but to be able to raise the next generation, whether it's your children, your neighbors' children, but to be the example that you want to be, to do excellently what it is that you have the capacity to do. When you have excellent Nigerians, you will have an excellent Nigeria. Now, it is not government's responsibility alone. Government is only one of the 5 or 6 pillars that help to build people. The family as a unit is an institution that should build the people. Schools, are an institution that should build the people. Of course, look, the media An institution that built the people. I always tell, just quick segue, I always tell the story of how when I was growing up, I remember my mother used to make sure that I read the newspapers between page 1 and page 4 every day, between 4 p.m. and 5 p.m. After finishing my homework, I have to read and look for a word that I don't know, go into the dictionary, and then find the meaning. My mother trusted me to the hands of an editor she had never met.
This is interesting because, you know, I have, and I'm sorry for breaking.
Yeah, no, please, this is the conversation.
Exactly that. But I have a similar story.
Yes.
You know, in this case, it was my father. And it wasn't as smooth as yours, you know. Mine was that, you know, I would sit with my dad in the living room, you know, as I think I was in primary 3. And I'll be reading, the man buys 7, 8 newspapers, and I was sitting with him reading the newspapers, you know. But my mom would say, hey, you have to come and do some chores. Yes. My dad would say, leave this guy alone. I mean, he's
surprise, you are a journalist.
Yeah.
You see, that was a man who kind of, whether he knew consciously what he was doing or not, he was shaping the next generation.
Yeah.
And he was already laying a pathway for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, true. That is the responsibility of us as nation builders. Every father should be a nation builder by building not only yourself, but also your kids, and hoping that your kids will become the example for their friends. And that's how you influence people. That's what leadership is all about. Each of us trying to be the best version of us so that we can influence other people to become better.
Interesting.
And in doing that, that's how we build the nation, right? And then, of course, getting people involved in things that actually change the community. Look, you and I were talking about in 2009, I facilitated or, you know, led a project called Mushi makeover.
Yes, yes.
It was because of that video that I saw, that video about that boy, that was one of the kind of things that inspired me to say, why can't I be the one? Now, what had happened? 2009 September, I believe it was, the House of Assembly of Lagos State House of Assembly, came out with an edict that said by 2010, every house on the high streets of Lagos have to be painted. Otherwise, ... They didn't say what will happen, but it was just a threat. And I remember that I was listening to it. I had just gone to run a training for Guarantee Trust Bank, and their training school was in Ilupeju. We had been told from the guys who came back, you know, after having spent hours, that apparently there was a trailer that had broken down on Western Avenue, right, in Lagos, for those who know. And so that the only way to not get stuck in traffic is to go through Mushi. Right, and if you go through Mushi, you can circumvent that accident. So I had to pass through Mushi, and I was listening to the radio as this thing came on, and there were so many houses at that time that, you know, I could see some of them had never been painted. Some of them, the paint had worn off, you know. And I was saying to the guy that was with me, some of my staff, I said, God, look at this. How are these guys supposed to paint their own houses? Right? I mean, these guys don't have the money. And now we have an edict, we have a threat. You know, cut the long story short, by the time I got home, I heard in my head, why don't you go and paint Mushi? I'm like, me? Paint Mushi? How can I paint Mushi? But cut the long story short, 6 weeks later, we carried out a project called Mushi Makeover, where we got over 2,000 people to come out on December 12, 2009, and they painted 296 houses free of charge. It wasn't their house.
296 houses.
We painted in one day. 3.5 kilometers of road maidan. 28 bus stops were painted.
Wow.
In one day. Listen, people like Banky W were there. Wizkid was there. Bank executives.
2009.
2009.
Wow.
2000, even at that time, just soon after the honorable leader of the House of Representatives, he came out there. The first lady of Lagos State came out to paint a house that was built in 1960 and had never been painted before.
Interesting.
Now, we didn't ask Lagos State for 1 kobo. We didn't get 1 kobo from Lagos State. People brought their own paint. Caplux gave us 20,000 liters of emulsion, 10,000 liters of gloss. DN Meyer gave us 10,000 liters of, and then they did the technical assistance for the project. Berger gave us 60% discount on every paint that was bought from Berger, but that's not all. Berger then trained 120 unemployed young people that we found trained them for 5 days, and then equipped them with every tool that they needed to start. That was what
the paint.
Yes, Stanbic IBTC was the one who gave the buses that moved the 120. You see, what I'm trying to say to you is that day, a man who was not in government, had no interest in government, still doesn't, right? Had no interest in politics, still doesn't. Had no ambition, still doesn't. And all that he wanted was, we can make a difference if we do it together. And because I went on Facebook and just told people, come guys, let's go and paint Mushi, Ali Baba, Kate Henshaw, all of these people came out. We made a lot of noise about it. People showed up. They brought their paint.
Interesting.
So my point is just to say that we can build a nation. The people, 220 million strong people, if only they can believe, if only they can believe, if only they can accept responsibility to try to do the little that they can, we will transform Nigeria.
I mean, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But there is, like the good book says, that an effectual door is open to me, but there are adversaries. Look, the Nigerian people have suffered tremendous subjugation.
I agree.
And
under rulers.
Yes.
Subjugation.
Yes. So, this past week, we had the launching of the book of former President Ibrahim Babangida, and he has come out now to tell us that, look, let me just give you guys what happened. Hiding supports this annulment. I was outflanked. And they beat me to it. I had to do what I had to do to protect the integrity of the nation, the security of the nation. Now, I don't want us to go into judging him, but my question is, so you have a people, and that is just one example, a very big one, by the way. So you have that kind of suppression, subjugation. June 12, 1993 was a rousing moment for this country. The people in the north voted massively for a southerner. MK Abdullah defeated Tofa in Kano. It was a Muslim ticket. The things that divided us did not matter. Now all of that was crushed. The point is that the Nigerian people have suffered too many destruction by the people in power that we cannot, in my view, and then I'll let you comment, we cannot do this transformation if we don't talk about those power institutions, those structures. We must also go beyond this laudable idea of yours. Clearly. What do you think?
Well, so I would say to you that the past does not shape the future. It only shapes the present. It is now that matters. Because we like to look back at the things that happened. I would almost have not wanted to comment about the IBB book launch, except for the fact that I say to myself, it had such a devastating impact on our trajectory as a nation. And I think that one of the most devastating things that we didn't realize was that it was that particular moment that the people came to the conclusion, our votes don't count. From that moment is where you start hearing, our votes don't count, our votes don't count, our votes don't count. It was that particular annulment that and I would say almost subsequent annulments, or because there were about 2 or 3 times that they had made attempts at that. But that was the thing that embedded that into the consciousness of the people. Now the danger of my votes don't count is that we, the majority, have become the minority. What do I mean by that? Look at the number of registered voters and look at the number of votes that are counted. I didn't say voters, votes. Because every time they declare votes, I hope you know there are 4 kinds of votes. There are what you call mobilized votes, which is human beings that believe. There are monetized votes. These are human beings that are bought. Their belief is bought. Their votes are bought. But they are human beings and their votes. The third one is what you call manufactured votes, which is when somebody sits down and begins to thumbprint. There are ballot papers, but there are no human beings. And then the last one is the manipulated votes, right? Manipulated votes are where you just go and you rewrite the number. Now, even with all of that, go and look at the number of votes that are cast and the number of registered voters, and you realize that, you know, the concept of my vote doesn't count is the most powerful thing that the rulers have used to suppress people.
So how do we begin to correct that, Mr. Durotoye?
No, it is by talking about it. It is by giving data and statistics that people don't know. For instance, right, the people don't know that in the last elections, there were 93 million registered voters. People don't believe or don't know that only 23 million votes were counted, including manufactured, manipulated votes. That in a sense, 70 million people did not vote. That is the majority. Etiosa local government, last election, 297,000 registered voters. The local government chairman of Etiosa local government is there by reason of 16,000 votes. Do you understand? The day of local government elections, I got there to vote in Victoria Garden City, safe environment. That's where I live. Safe environment. Yeah. I got there at 12:30. Not one single car was there.
Look at that.
I told my wife, sit in the car. I went there, found some people were around the voting area. I said, oh, please, these INEC people, are they coming? They said, we are here. I said, you are here. I said, where's everybody? They said, nobody's coming. And then I went back, got my wife.
Which election?
This was 20, this last one, the 23 elections, right? And then, you know, went there, found out that, you know, when I got there, my vote was the fourth vote to enter into the ballot box at 12:30, 12:40, going on 1 o'clock by this time. And there were only 3 parties, APC, PDP, and Youth Party. VGC alone has 6,800 registered voters. So I'm only saying that the real power that those who are in power have is the illusion that the majority have no power. And if we can begin to just say to ourselves, listen, your vote is a responsibility to the next generation. It's not an issue about whether your vote will lead to a winner or not. It is your voice. But if you don't vote, you know, so my point, if you get what I'm doing, we have to keep talking about this. The people have to believe. And as long as the people don't believe, then they will keep looking for who to blame. The person that will fix Nigeria, whether you like it or not, is in front of the mirror. Go and look for him.
I mean, I agree with you. And I'm going to ask you this question because you are a nations builder. Why have you now have a change of perspective? Because my view, and I agree with you, Mr. Durotoye, a lot, but my view is that we cannot cause the most effective and quick change that we desire without causing a major change in the political realm.
I agree.
Which is the reason why you wanted to do Nigeria in 2019 when you stood for election.
I agree.
So where are you in that, you know? So have you given up entirely on that? And I'm not saying that necessarily you have to go, but I'm saying that in terms of understanding and doing something about the political process, your plan and desire and the fact that you actually stood the election shows that you believe, as a matter of fact, I read it in your profile, that you felt that, okay, the changes that you think has to happen, the values that you think must be inculcated can be best done when you are in that position.
No, not necessarily what about me in that position, of course, when good people are in the right position.
And just, you know, the last thing, and then you make the closing remark is that my 8 years in government has also shown me very clearly, Brother Fela, that if the guy who is number one, because I worked with Professor Oshibajo, was number 2. You know, I mean, that's a story for another day. If the number one is not the right person who really wants to make a change, yes, all of these things that we're talking about, of course, we can try. But it is quicker.
It is quicker
if we get the right person. So what's your perspective, you know, and then you wrap up?
Absolutely. Nothing can be greater for a nation than to have the most powerful person be a leader, not a ruler. Nothing can be better. Someone who has great vision, somebody who has the capacity to inspire a nation, somebody who has the ability to coach. For instance, governors that don't have to report to the president. So you have to have a coaching relationship with the president. Cannot just issue. So you got to have somebody who is a true leader. You have to have the right kind of person in that. There's nobody that doubts that. My point is, but it's not only the president. It will have to have it in the governors, in the states. You have to have local government chairmen. People like me have been known to build and raise leaders. Why did I run in 2019? Because I realized that you will need to have good governance to go from any country. Let me put it this way. The gap between where we are and the greatest Nigeria that we can have is good governance. But for us to have good governance, you have to have good people in governance, not just government. Governance is political sector, policy sector, public sector, private sector. And this people sector I've been talking about, they all have to be good people. If you don't have good people in the political sector, the good people will not be able to emerge as candidates. We've seen that happen. Where the brightest and best were not always the ones that were chosen. Because the people in the political parties were not necessarily led by the right values. The political parties themselves don't have any particular ideology that you can use to differentiate, at least in Nigeria, the two leading parties, PDP from APC. It was Governor Soludo who said before he became governor, he said, listen, what is it that shows that a party, a state is led by PDP or APC. He said if you drive through Nigeria, you can't tell the difference between an APC state and a PDP state. And I always joke, I said because it's the same party with only two doors. There's only one party. Nigeria is a uni-party system. It only has two doors that have APC written on one door, PDP written on the other door. It's the same ideology. So that's where the problem with that is. We need to have good people go and get their voters' cards. And recognize that you don't wait until elections for you to go and pick up your voter's card. This is the time to go and pick up your voter's card. You don't have to wait 5 hours or 6 hours when they are trying to register the next set of people to go and say that you want to collect your voter's card. This is the time. You need good people to run for office. Right? Whether they win or they don't win, it doesn't matter. You need good people to join their campaign, to come up with ideas. You need good people to join the political parties, and you need good people to go into the electoral commission. Those 5 things: good people to get votes, good people to run for office, good people to support political parties, 2 good people to actually support the candidates, and good people in electoral. That was why I ran. I said it again and again and again and again and again and again. But people were thinking, Fela is now a politician. I say to people, I'm not a politician. I never will be. I'm a nation builder. Calling me a politician is like calling a man who goes into a garage a car. The fact my job as a nation builder is to have done things in the NGO space. I've done nation building with my business, visible impact, gemstone. I have been doing nation building. We need nation building in governance, but that's not the only place. We need in the bureaucracy, the public service, civil service, right? Somebody needs to train them. Do you understand where I'm coming from? The work is much, but if you get the right person is at number 1, the work is going to be fastest. But I just want you to say, I personally, I'm not interested in politics.
I understand.
I'm not interested, but I am interested in raising the people who have the right vision for politics. I am interested in raising people who have the right vision, the right character to go into all the levels, inspiring them, tender, whatever it is we can do to help them become better. I am interested in them going into legislature. I'm interested in training the civil service. I am interested in raising businessmen who will be able to fund them. I am interested in getting students to run for office as student leaders. I am interested in building people that will become leaders. That is my job. That is my role. And I pray that I will be able to do that in my course of my lifetime, and that those who will raised as leaders will get into places where they can take the best decisions for our nation.
Okay, good. Last thing, I normally ask my guests to do this. What is your counsel to the president? What's your most important counsel to the president, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu?
My counsel to the president is that Nigeria needs a vision. If you ask the average Nigerian today, what is the vision for Nigeria? I don't know what the answer is likely to be.
Interesting.
Nigeria needs a vision, but Nigeria needs a set of values that will be able to help to actualize that vision. There are 10 values that when I served in the office of SSA, we developed a national plan. I don't know whether the president ever got to see it. But there are 10 values that we said will build a nation.
When you put it down.
Make a positive impact on everyone we meet.
You put it down.
Yes, as a document. Number one is make a positive impact on everyone you meet and everywhere you go. Number 2 is be a solution provider and not a part of the problem to be solved. Number 3 is be a role model worthy of emulation. Number 4 is be your best in all you do, particularly what you're naturally good at. Number 5 is do the right thing at all times, regardless of who is doing the wrong thing. Number 6 is value time and make the best use of it. Number 7 is care and show respect to all through your words and your actions. Number 8 is consciously build a great legacy starting now, today, and every day. Number 9 is live a life of integrity and honor. Number 10 is make your family, your nation, and your God proud. Those 10 values, we have seen it over the last 20 years change people, young people into leaders, great leaders. My own 3 children in this country, my own 3 children were raised on those 10 values. Recently, the school that they went to gave my wife and I an award for being the first family in 46 years to produce 3 head boys.
Wow.
3, one family producing 3 head boys. Listen, I am saying to you that we have what it takes. The people just need to have the right values, and we need to have the right vision, and then we need to release them to own the country so that they can actually get projects done, but social impact projects.
So those 10 values that you enunciated and that you tabled, why did you leave? Why didn't you get done with it? Why did you leave? Sounds
Well, I can say to you that the truth about it is that when you are needed, one of the greatest things that happened to me by not collecting a salary was that when you put something down and you see that nothing is happening, it's easy for you to walk away. Okay. You understand what I'm saying? But what am I walking away from? Is not what is as important as what am I walking away to.
Absolutely.
Today, we are now about, it's the values that we presented. Whether the government wants it or not is not the issue. I've been pushing those values for the last 20 years. Yeah. Now what we're about to do is a values infusion program. We're about to do, right now, we're about to get a scroll, right, and have 1 million values champions sign it around the nation and around the world.
Fantastic.
Now, what does that mean? Each values champion is just committed to say, I will live by these values and I will share it with 10 people. So imagine if 10 million Nigerians say, I will make a positive impact on everyone I meet and everywhere I go. What's going to happen?
It will be a revolution.
It will be a revolution. So I'm not waiting for the government. I'm not waiting for the government. Again, we will do what we can to build our nation because we have only one set of people that we owe an explanation. Not ourselves, but our children.
Absolutely.
Our children are going to ask everybody that is on social media commenting, they're going to ask you 2 questions. The first one is, what happened? My guys, you can choose any opportunity, you can say anything, that's where your opinion counts. Then, after you have said everything about what happened, they're going to ask you the second, the most important question.
What did you do?
What did you do? You see, that one, opinion is not inside. You are going to say, I tweeted, I abused, I said, I did this. Nigeria is blessed with 4 kinds of people. Every nation is. We have cynics who are always cynical. They can never believe anything. Good will come out of anything. You have critics who are always critical. They always look for what is wrong in anything. And then you have what I call complainers, who will always complain. They will find something to complain about. But then you have contributors, who will always say, how can I contribute?
Fantastic.
Right? Cynics would look for something to disbelieve. Critics will look for something wrong. Complainers will look for something to cry about. But then the contributors will look for something to build. Guys, I want to plead with you. Cynicism has never built a nation. criticism has never really done any much. And before you chastise me again, listen, since when you have been tweeting, what has changed? Complaining has never been a leadership skill. What we need is contributors. So as many of you as truly believe that you can make a difference, please go ahead and find a way to make a difference. Connect with other people that are making a difference. And this is how we build nations. This is how we see progress. We don't build nations overnight, but we build nations on progress. And the more people come together and say, I will live right and I will do what is right, I will serve with excellence and integrity, that is how we will build. We just need you to be the one that will help us build Nigeria. Together
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mr. Durotoye. I mean, you won't believe that an hour has already passed. Very exciting, insightful contributions. I want to thank you for all that you have represented in this country. I want to thank you for your service. I want to thank you for your voice. And I also want to thank you for coming to Inside Sources.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
It's been an absolute joy being with you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for all you do. Thank you for your service to our nation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I know how much backlash people like you and I get for sometimes trying to go and make a difference, right? And thank you for showing us that you can come out of government untainted, unscathed.
Thank you.
And you can still continue to add value to people.
Thank you so much.
God bless you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you so much. And there you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, and that is what Mr. Durotoye has said, we will not relent. Nigeria will prevail. It means that Nigeria will win because we will continue to push the issues. Thank you for watching. My name is Laolu Akonde, and by the grace of God, I'll see you at the next edition.